Hello everybody, welcome to the Comic Gamer Movie Show. My name is Deshaun and today I have an action classic for you. In honor of the Shang-Chi trailer that came out on Monday, which I thought was awesome, I am gonna review the inspiration for Shang-Chi. Well, not the inspiration for Shang-Chi, because I believe Shang-Chi came out right around the same time that, Bruce Lee had just popped up on the scene. He had already did, some awesome movies. He already did some really amazing stuff. But let's face it, the movie that would go on to define Bruce Lee's entire career and existence would have to be 1973's Enter the Dragon. Enter the Dragon was, it was, in my opinion, it pretty much is the action classic. It's the original action classic. Like, I feel like Enter the Dragon kind of set the bar for Kung Fu movies. Not only did it set the bar for Kung Fu movies, like I said, I consider Enter the Dragon to be the original action classic. I've seen that movie both when I was younger, and I've seen it even to this day. And to this day, every time I see it, it's just, I put Enter the Dragon is in the same category with The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. I think The Good, the Bad, the Ugly is almost timeless. Almost. There are some racial things in there that are a bit like, bit little, weary. But generally speaking, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is almost timeless to me. And Enter the Dragon is almost timeless. There are obvious things that through time, itself don't quite work. But man, that movie, Enter the Dragon, is the most iconic action. In my opinion, Enter the Dragon is kind of is like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like how the Wright brothers are the people who invented airplanes. It feels like the basis of what an action classic is from this film. First of all, you have some amazing, action performances from these action icons. Clearly Bruce Lee's the anchor of the film, but you got Jim Kelly in here, who was a big deal. My grandmother loves Jim Kelly. She watched a lot of his films. And, he was one of the most premier black men who were like legit martial artists back in that time period. Well, like a ton of those around, there was like black people who were into martial arts, which, the black culture has black people in general already have this interesting fascination with martial arts. I mean, you don't gotta look any further than the Wu-Tang Clan and RZA and the films that RZA has directed and the films that, Method Man have been involved in to see, like black culture has really always had a fascination with, martial arts movies. And, there's a whole thing behind that, but I'm not going to get into it here. But I'm going to just tell you Jim Kelly was definitely a big deal. Like I said, my grandmother watched a lot of Jim Kelly stuff. And, in fact, she watched so much Jim Kelly stuff, and I watched her watch just so much Jim Kelly stuff. I could never get into it because it was always that blaxploitation shit. And I could never get into it because this is just the way they sound and the way they talked. It always felt phony. It always felt like, it always felt like they were just pushing it out to be like, this is the cool thing to say at this time period. Like, bro, you don't gotta talk like that, man. But, it was the times. But I just never could get down with it. But Jim Kelly kicked so much ass in those movies that, spoiler alert for this movie that came out in 1973, he dies in this movie. It completely caught me off guard. And looking back, you take a step back, and of course the black guy died, because there's another white dude in this who's a martial artist too. I'd never seen him before. I had never heard of him being like a martial artist or anything else before, but he lives, he's like a cop or something. He's there investigating, because the whole movie is about, Bruce Lee plays this character named Lee, just simply named Lee, and Lee is this badass martial artist. Everyone knows who he is. He's kind of world-renowned. Well, not world-renowned, but he's a badass enough that he makes a lot of money off his reputation and off his dojo and who he is. This is the movie you also get the famous water quote, "Be like water, empty your mind. Be like water, my friend. Be flexible." This is where you get the water quote that a lot of people remember. And this is where Jeet Kune Do, I think it's called Jeet Kune Do, whatever the form of martial arts that he invented. Jeet Kune Do. That's when you start getting the whole Jeet Kune Do thing. But the whole movie is about Bruce Lee's sister. There's big time crime boss guy is on some Shang. Literally, this movie inspired so much stuff. It inspired Mortal Kombat. It inspired, you know, so many fucking, like, it inspired so many kids, it inspired so many movies, it inspired, yeah, like, the action genre itself, the tournament thing. Like, it's not like tournaments haven't been a thing in movies up till here, but Enter the Dragon pushed the like, I dare say that Enter the Dragon, you could look at it and go, there's a big chunk of why anime does so many tournaments. It's because of Enter the Dragon. Because what happens is, Bruce Lee's sister is killed by these thugs who work for this crime lord, this crime kingpin. And the government's been trying to get this crime kingpin guy, but they can't get him. He's too slippery. And of course, you know, Lee's character seeing his sister, you know, finding his sister dead from this guy, and he can't get to this guy because this guy's going all across the, you know, going across to the sea to compete in this tournament that only the best and the best get to fight in this tournament, and you get this wealth, and you get all, you know, and this guy, like, clearly the guy who's this lord, the head of this thing, which his name for the life of me, I never can remember. But he is, you know, he's on some Tekken shit. You know, he's on some I am this huge, I love to see people fight kind of shit. You know, like he's this huge drug lord empire which he can't be touched. He's on this island. He owns his own island. This is crazy. So Jim Kelly, the other characters like Jim Kelly and Lee, they all come. People all across the world to come to fight in this tournament on this private island. And of course, Bruce Lee is like literally. Watching this movie, you can see the archetype. It's same thing with, that's why I say this and Good and Bad and the Ugly are just like the grandfathers of the genre for me, because when you watch these movies you can see the skeleton, the archetype, like it's you could see it forming of how things would be now. You could see it, like things that were like, you're like, wow, for some reason I would probably think this is cheesy, or I'd probably think this is dull. But it feels so authentic because it's like, this is the birth of it. You know what I mean? And like, that's the vibe. Like the old school, the main protagonist being this badass, quiet. He doesn't really talk. He's a man on a mission guy who's just this badass dude. He makes everything look effortless. And you know, he is here, and he is here to get vengeance. And if he helps the government out along the way, so be it. But if he is here for vengeance. And like I said, dude, the movie is great. The fight scenes are great. There's the iconic, the iconic scene with Bruce Lee with his shirt off and with the claw mark across his chest from getting cut across the chest. That's it. The movie's just iconic in general. It's iconic. It still stands up to this day. I mean, this movie came out in 1973, and it still stands up. To me, this movie is, you know, the bedrock of which all my action classics are like laid upon. This movie will go down in history. It will always be probably one of the top 5 best action films of all time. And it was Bruce Lee's last film, so it has that extra bit of thing to it. It has that Heath Ledger Dark Knight thing going with it, because it was Bruce Lee's last film, and he did a bunch of great films before this, but this movie was like, you know, gangbusters. And I really wanted to talk about it because Shang-Chi was, you know, mostly pretty much based off of Bruce Lee, and a lot of the, you know, and really around this time period as well is when they started upping it, because, you know, upping it out of the stratosphere because of these, you know, because of this movie and how successful it was. With like, oh man, people really want kung fu shit. And that's when kung fu shit just got crazy. That's when you start getting a ton of kung fu stuff. But man, like I said, Enter the Dragon, I probably have to give this, and like I said, I gave Dread a 10. But like, Enter the Dragon's a solid 10, man. Like, this movie is, if you're into action stuff and you just want to go back in time and see the bedrock of where this stuff came from, I mean, you see where the inspiration for Mortal Kombat came from. You see where the inspiration for tournament movies came from. You see where the inspiration for certain karate movies, like characters like Shang-Chi came from. This movie inspired so many genres and so many different things that its impact is still felt to this day. I mean, they won't touch this movie. I am shocked they won't touch this movie. But they'll just do other tournament kind of movies. You can do Mortal Kombat and whatnot. You know, they just turn it up. But man, I am so shocked no one's ever touched Into the Dragon like before. Like, and no one's ever just tried to remake it. Maybe they have, but maybe it's because you can't. You would need an action star the level of Bruce Lee, the realistic, level of Bruce Lee. And I don't think the action star never got any bigger than that, man. The action movie star. Think about it like that. Bruce Lee, like, as much as I love Bruce Lee and I dug Jim Kelly and some of the people in there, this wasn't like the best acted movie. This movie wasn't winning it, but it was the biggest movie. And in fact, I'd probably say this movie and Jaws kind of were the movies that made the blockbuster, like the word blockbuster. Now, granted, the word blockbuster was made for Jaws, which will be another movie that I talk about at a certain point. But these two movies, Jaws and this, really did put the idea of like blockbuster. Like, this is a movie we all come to the theater, we pack in here to see this craziness. Jaws, because you're scared. This, because you want to watch Bruce Lee be a bad motherfucker for an hour and some change. And he was a bad motherfucker. Like I said, dude, it was just like, I remember that, just the bravado and just with ease, he breathed it just like, yeah. like, it was just like, nope. That ain't nothing. He was just so like I said, he just has it. You know what I mean? And they kind of wrote Shang-Chi a lot like Bruce Lee, where he's just like that. He's just like, I have it. I know I got it. You know I got it. I don't gotta sweat it because you know. Like I don't gotta brag about it, but to look on his face is like, I know that you know. Oh man, it was so cool. But yeah, Enter the Dragon was one of the greatest movies of all time. It still stands up to this day. I give it a 10 out of 10. I think that it's amazing. If you have not seen Enter the Dragon, do yourself a favor. Educate yourself, brother. Educate yourself and go watch Enter the Dragon. Now, it was on Netflix for quite a while. Don't know if it's on there anymore. I got it on Blu-ray. So, I got it on Blu-ray a long time ago. I was just like, yeah, Enter the Dragon. Duh. like that's like the original thing for me, man. That's what made me into Kung Fu shit in the first place. But anyways, thank you guys for watching the Kombat Game Movie Show. Please remember to like, subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one. Goodbye.